I mean, I know some people that put 100% of their savings into gold, but again, there may be something that we're not seeing correctly, that we can't foresee, that may happen, where gold may depreciate very quickly. You never know what the next plan is of the ones that are in charge. But I will conclude here. Any questions? Does anybody have any questions or concerns? Okay, start here.
Well, like I said, I enjoyed the speech, and the history was great, and which I've heard before, but some of the unique things was a lot of the stuff about the development of into Roosevelt, and then even when gold took a dip, because that's one of the arguments you hear for gold from 1971 and all that stuff with Nixon. And you were touching on it, and I'd really like to hear about it more, and I think these guys will stimulate it with their questions too. What is the importance of us in a healthy economy? Because like what you're saying is, it's probably not going to get good, you know? And what is the importance of us in a healthy economy, and what's the one thing that we could do good, which you were touching on it, but if you could be more specific with it.
Sure. So are you saying, well, hold on, keep the mic on. Are you saying that what's important, how can you protect yourself in the future? What do you mean the importance of us?
Yeah, exactly. And I heard the gold thing, but I think also we're walking in, well, I don't know. You would know better than I, but from what a lot of people are saying is we're walking into an area or a period in time where the economy is not going to be great.
Right.
And it's going to get worse.
There will be another crisis.
Powers that be are not in our favor. So what's the point of having a healthy economy? I don't know if we're going to have it, you know?
Right.
And so what's the real alternative? What are the steps you're taking?
Okay, so again, so we will have another crisis. It's going to happen, and it's going to be bigger than the last one. And it's likely that the next one will be a sovereign debt crisis, where everybody, basically private debt was taken over by the government and by the taxpayers. So the next crisis is likely to be a sovereign debt crisis, where people say, listen, all these governments are printing a bunch of money and it's unsustainable, so people lose confidence in the currency. So currencies go down in value, and there's a lot of inflation. Some people say there could be deflation, but it's going to be pretty bad either way. So I would say if you are in certain industries like finance, which is what I'm in, that's going to be an industry that suffers quite a bit. Let's talk about where the monetary system could go. My hope, and there's a lot of solid economists that would say things could go this way, is the world would go back to a gold standard. Of course, the current banking interests do not want this to happen. So that's one avenue that could go, and where we could go, where the people are allowed to exchange in gold again, legally. Another way we could go is regional currencies and then a global currency, which is the absolute worst thing that could ever happen to this world. Because then you have even less very powerful people in charge of the whole world's money supply. So all you can do, I mean, I can just say, from being from Russia, from the Soviet Union, where there was a lot of inflation, I can just say that we're living on borrowed time here. Things are too easy, and they won't be this easy eventually. They'll be harder because we are using our dollars, we are sending them to China and to our own Federal Reserve, who's printing us more dollars, and that's what we're using to live on. That's why it's so easy. That's why money is relatively easy to come by here. We've all got loans, we've all got car loans, and we've all got home loans. So I will just say it'll get harder eventually. I mean, I'm not saying tomorrow, I'm not saying next month. 2-3 years out, at least, I'm probably going to see some of these big problems. All I can say is people need to pay down their loans. If you're not a business person, you're going to pay down the loans as much as you can. Unless you can always, you have so much in savings that you can pay your loans no matter what. Then you want to have, theoretically, as many loans as possible. The reason is, if you're paying 5% on your loan now and inflation is 9%, you're actually making money on your loan. You should only have a loan if you don't need it. Let's say if you have $100,000 saved up, but you buy a house, well, take out a loan on the house. Because if there's ever a problem, you lose your job, something happens, you can't pay the mortgage, you can always pay off the house. But if if you're barely affording to pay the loan now, consume less, pay off the loan, and whatever savings you have, again, save it in the types of currencies that are going to hold their value, and types of commodities that are going to hold their value, which would be gold and silver. I mean, all I can say is it will get harder, and the dollar is going to continue to lose value. Am I answering your question? I'm not.
No, yeah. What could we do now? And basically, what could we do now? And what ways could we invest in gold? Like,
well, if you're able to move to another country, if you're an enterprising individual. Like
where?
My favorite would be Switzerland, Singapore, Hong Kong. China is great if you don't care about speaking out, but if you're a business person, because you can start a business, I mean, walk down the street, start a business, they don't care. You know, here is just, it's very regulated, especially depends on what kind of business you want to start. We're dying in a sea of regulation here. If you want to be an entrepreneur, move to a country which likely has a great future. I mean, when people were coming to this country, they were not looking forward and saying, man, look at all that debt out there. It's beautiful. I love all that debt that that country has. I want to go over there because they have a great future. They were seeing prosperity. They were seeing real economic growth. So where is that now? That's in the emerging markets. So I would say China, some of the other Asian countries. Again, there are problems there. I'm not saying they're perfect, but if you want solid economic growth, look there. They're also fiat currency countries, but actually Switzerland is trying to reinstate a gold standard as a parallel currency. It may happen, it may not.
So in Europe, you're saying Switzerland, South America, anything?
South America, Argentina is good. Chile, maybe. There's a lot of up-and-coming countries there, but again, you have problems there with less developed capital markets. Yeah. So you have to know the culture, really. So that's the rule of law. Go ahead.
What makes gold better than silver or platinum to have for an investment?
Well, the reason gold is better than silver, let's say, is because silver is much less valuable. So I have silver and gold, let's say, for my savings, because you can have silver in lower denominations. Silver is also tied to other industrial products. So the price of silver will fluctuate more with the economy. Price of gold really fluctuates with the money supply. And another thing about gold that you have to understand is if rates ever go up to where there's a real interest rate, right now we have a negative real interest rate. That's why gold keeps going up, is if you hold dollars, they're going to lose value. If you hold dollars and put them into a CD that's making you 2%, if inflation is 6%, and don't trust the government number, CPI of 2.8 or whatever it is, I would say it's much higher than that. But whatever real inflation is, if inflation, let's say, is 6%, then you have a negative real interest rate. So for holding dollars, you're losing money. So that's why gold does well, because just by holding it, you don't have to get an interest rate, you're making money. Now, why did gold go down in value when Volcker came in 1980? The reason it went down in value so much is because he raised interest rates so high to where you could use a regular currency, you could put it and get a CD, and that CD, if it makes you 20% and inflation is 12%, you're making 8% on your CD. You know, so gold competes as a currency with fiat currencies. So that's what's going on. And right now, gold is out competing. Gold is beating the fiat currencies. And does that answer your question?
What's the difference between platinum and gold, though? Platinum and gold? Why would gold be better than platinum?
Well, of course, platinum is even more rare. So your gold really has that perfect balance between rarity or scarcity, and there's enough of it to really go around. Platinum is more valuable and more rare. You could hold platinum. It's just never really been used as a currency. So you could hold it to preserve value. Platinum is also tied to industrial use as well, because it's used in catalytic converters and a few other areas as well. So it's going to fluctuate based on other factors. Gold is really more tied to money, fundamentally. Does that answer your question?
I have a question here, and we're going to expand this so you guys can hear. One, I'm very passionate about this, and thanks for coming to this event and speaking. It's awesome. When I hear someone say, what can we do? Yeah, buy more gold. I wonder if you couldn't help and comment, maybe it takes it too political, and maybe that's not where it should go. But when we say as Americans, how can we empower this change? Isn't it lie within our vote?
Well, so great question, by the way. And of course, the man that you've probably heard of, all of you, that a lot of people think is a quack, is Ron Paul. He wants the country to go back to the gold standard. I know. I love the man. There's probably two men that I love. It's my father and it's Ron Paul. I really love this man. And the reason he actually went and ran for Congress, he ran for Congress in 1971. It's not a coincidence. He ran for Congress in 1971 because of Nixon closed the gold window. And he was watching the news, and he was a doctor, of course, and nobody cares. And he said, people are just sleepwalking through life. Nobody understands how important this is. So he saw 40, 50 years down the road what was going to happen. And that's why he's so consistent, because that's all he's ever said. He wants the country back on a gold standard. He wants to do away with the Federal Reserve. And he wants to do away with all of this warmongering around the world. But really, how is it all financed? It's all financed by this printing of money. And that's why gold is doing so well, because there's less and less of it. The financial markets understand, because the people that are in charge of money that are bidding up the price of gold understand what's going on. Does that answer?
So the true power remains in our vote.
Exactly, yeah. I would say the problem with the Constitution is it gives the power to tax and the power to judge, which are really the two core powers, to the government. So eventually it just takes over, because without those two powers it couldn't. But with those two powers, so eventually the U.S. government has really been able to, the U.S. has been so prosperous so far is because of how weak the government was. But at this point it's become so powerful, so strong, that it's starting to choke off, freedom. So that would be how I'd look at it.